Let's talk about Blocx moving off of ASICs in a surprising move. Now, Blocx is a project that I covered and did some speculative mining on with my, let's see, that was the D9, I believe, on the X11 algorithm. And they are transitioning off of that X11 algorithm to Autolycos V2 in the latest Medium blog post from Blocx on July 17th, 2024. They say goodbye to ASICs and hello to more decentralized future. As a historic milestone, Blocx will be the second ever coin to use the Autolycos 2 algorithm, following Ergo. We are transitioning our hashing algorithm from X11 to Autolycos 2. This is really interesting because the only algorithm or the only project that has utilized Autolycos V2 has been Ergo in the past. And now we're seeing that mining algorithm get applied to a new project. Most new projects that were going ASIC resistant here in the recent past have decided to develop their own in collaboration with, of course, the LOL miner developer. And that was both Meowcoin as well as Ironfish, right? Both coming out with their own ASIC resistant algorithms. And now we're seeing one move over to Autolycos. Now, in both of those cases, there was discussion surrounding utilizing Autolycos V2 or creating an entire algorithm or going with ProgPal, right? I think those were pretty much the options. The reasoning behind not going with Autolycos V2 was primarily due to its inefficiency from the perspective of being able to utilize the entire power of GPUs, meaning like, especially on the memory side of things, what you would see would be like a 30% allocation of the memory. And so to make it a little bit more ASIC resistant, utilize all of the available power on the GPUs. The decision was made by those projects to go ahead and utilize an entirely new mining algorithm and to get one developed. And supposedly those are functioning as expected. Now, the reason behind not going with KPAL is that ProgPal really has a negative stigma surrounding it for basically heat and power consumption, right? And that really, from a miner perspective, has put off a lot of miners from, at least in the summer, not running their GPUs on the ProgPal algorithms. However, I would say that Oh God, a Girl, in collaboration with everyone else on the Ravencoin project, etc., did a very good job at making sure ProgPal will be as ASIC resistant as possible. So longevity-wise, I would think that ProgPal would probably be the safest bet as far as not being able to crack the code with ASICs down the line. That's just kind of more of a feeling than any hard data at this point, but that comes at expense of, high power consumption and heat, which you got to dissipate. That is kind of the whole surrounding thing. So it's really interesting that we have, I think, Autolycos V2 from X11 happening here on Blocx. The distribution is going to be interesting as well, too, because you got to keep in mind that this particular project is a proof of work, proof of stake combination. So half of the block reward, essentially, I think there's, we could go over the tokenomics again, I guess. I did cover them before. I think it's actually like 45% to nodes, 45% to miners, something along those lines. Pretty standard for these, I guess, Dash clones. Obviously, this one's going to set itself apart by being GPU mineable, I think. Says this change will open up mining opportunities for everyone, making it more accessible and equitable, ensuring stability and continuity for our network stakeholders. This switch will not affect our masternodes, and operations with masternodes will continue as before. So here's why they made the change. Consider Alex a tech enthusiast with a powerful gaming GPU. Under the previous X11 algorithm, they couldn't compete with large ASIC miners and felt excluded from participating in Blocx mining. With the switch to Autolycos 2, Alex can now use their GPU to mine Blocx effectively. This change democratizes mining, allowing individuals like Alex to contribute to the network, earn rewards, and support the ecosystem. And I think this is a very important thing to bring up for participation within networks too. A really great move, I think, for just getting your name out there as a project. And this is just from a completely separate perspective. Like, let's take decentralization and throw it out the window for a second, right? Let's take it out, throw it out the window, right? If you want your project to be adopted, you need users. And the best way to attract users is to give them a value proposition. Well, a value proposition of buying the coin and then waiting for it to go up in price is not as great as the value proposition of pointing your GPU at it and making some in return. And there are more people that own GPUs than there are that own ASICs for the specific algorithm that you have. Therefore, it goes to show that basically if you basically allow people to participate that have a wider audience of people that own GPUs, then you bring more people into your ecosystem, which means that you basically further decentralize the volume on, or the amount of supply that you have, right, on that network. And I think that's an important piece that a lot of people miss. I think without the evolution with a lot of projects, even including Bitcoin, as well as including Litecoin, Dogecoin, all of them, the natural progression had gone from CPUs to GPUs, FPGAs there for a little bit, and then, of course, ASICs. And a big portion of the community for each individual project has been built up during the GPU phase. The largest onboarding of users typically happens during the GPU phase, and that is really important for a project. So I think if you throw the fundamentals out the window as far as decentralization goes, there's an important factor there from a marketability standpoint for project owners. So I think that's what they're really highlighting here, and I think it's a good point. Now, they do go on to say decentralization. So they say ASIC mining often leads to the centralization of mining power where only a few with specialized hardware can participate. By switching to the Autolicos 2 algorithm, we enable GPU-based mining, which allows a broader range of participants to join and contribute to the network. This move is essential for promoting decentralization as it redistributes mining power more evenly across our user base. And I think, like, obviously, when they're saying this, it does still tie back to the idea of onboarding more users. But at the same time, it also encourages your hashing algorithm to be more decentralized across a wider network, which then, of course, basically makes the system more robust, provided miners aren't hopping too much off and on. The question that I'll have here coming up, of course, for Blocx in particular, is if they will have any sort of difficulty adjustment issues. Because in the past, of course, with GPU projects, even with some X11 projects, I believe this had happened as well, because there were a lot of spinoffs. You saw the difficulty adjustments basically not adjusting quick enough and slowing down the chain, et cetera, et cetera. So that will be something that has to be addressed. Now, finally, it does go on to talk about enhanced security. Now, the argument, I think, for ASICs in general in the past has been that you have a more steady security because people are locked into that ecosystem with that specific algorithm. In this particular case, it's different because X11 is pretty widespread, and you have a single coin that takes up a majority of the X11 hash rate, which is going to be the Dash, and that can create an opportunity for attacks on smaller networks utilizing the same hashing algorithm through, of course, services like NiceHash, mining rig rentals, and so on. So Autolicos 2 offers improved resistance to ASICs, which helps prevent centralization and enhances the network security against potential attacks. This algorithm ensures that mining remains competitive and fair, reducing the risk of a few entities controlling a large portion of the mining power. Now, you could say, of course, well, that's not a problem on big pool or big projects, right? But we're starting to read, like we were talking about earlier today, as of the new research that we just covered, that even Bitcoin could be under the threat, technically, of a 51% attack. It would just be against the miners' best interests. So key benefits, they go over it again, just decentralization, security, energy efficiency, and marketplace integration and utility. Now, the two here that are covered that I wanted to look at again is the energy efficiency, which says it's designed to consume less energy. Autolicos 2 makes the network more sustainable and reduces operational costs for miners. I think it depends at scale, right? Like this is something that you would have to compare to the current energy efficiency of the big X11 miners and so on. I think really this means, I think it's a game of scale. And if you're at a smaller scale on a GPU, it's more affordable for you to participate. And I think that's really what it comes down to. I don't know that efficiency can really play into that necessarily. And efficiency essentially means a lot of different things. You could say total efficiency to mine one Blocx, right? Or you could say efficiency, how efficient is the algorithm at utilizing the specific hardware, right? Which we talked about in the beginning. Technically, Autolicos 2 is not as efficient as some of the other options because it doesn't fully utilize the GPU. So it depends on what you're talking about. You can say that in an advertising post, but there's multiple factors that have to be, looked at in this particular case. So I'm going to push back on that one in particular. Marketplace integration and utility is interesting too. That wasn't covered. The Blocx marketplace integrates GPU computing power for tasks like rendering and machine learning, supporting ecosystem growth. It encourages more mining participation, boosting demand and utility for the Blocx token. Now, this has been true when we talk about where DeFi got its roots. Let's just say that right off of the bat. Most of those roots were coming from GPU miners looking to basically compound their mining rewards into something more by providing liquidity back to the network. And if they are truly going to add things like rendering, machine learning, AI, that sort of stuff into the algorithm with some bonuses added to it, a la, Dynex or something along those terms, then this becomes more interesting. But it is true that you do drive participation up by having a wider spread distribution of the supply of the token itself, because then more people will actually be utilizing the network. And then obviously, I think you have to have the platforms on top of that to make it worth it. Now, will Blocx have that? They're working on it. It does look like they are. I talked to Radiant yesterday, and that video will be coming out tomorrow. One of the key points was, the launch of RxD20, and the amount of participation on the network has grown exponentially to the point to where there have been more transactions. Let me get this right. 30% of the total transactions since inception of Radiant were done in the last month. There was something like 1 million transactions done in the last 30 days on Radiant, whereas since its inception, there have only been a total of 3 million transactions. Watch the video tomorrow to make sure that I got that right. It's somewhere around there. It's a pretty impressive amount of transactions and participation on the network when you launch those platforms, and that's going to be the most important part. So you can have miners more spread out. You can have more individuals participating thanks to the lower cost of the hardware and the more ubiquitous availability of it. But that doesn't mean anything if you don't have things to participate within on the network, right? And that's kind of, at the end of the day, the big concern that, I think even kaspa is facing with, getting Kasplex online at this point, right? Because you got to drive, especially in kaspa's case where you have accelerated emissions, you got to drive fees up to basically maintain your security budget in the future, which is going to be really, really important. And that experiment's going to be fascinating to watch as it unfolds. Now, When is this happening? We are currently in the implementation and testing phase on our blockchain for transitioning to Autolico's 2 algorithm. This significant update involves successfully converting our algorithm from Scala to C++, which has been completed. We anticipate full adapting the new algorithm within the next 1 to 2 weeks to ensure a smooth transition for our community. The exact block height will be announced 72 hours in advance. I believe we were looking at August 10th right now, but I'll keep a close eye on that. Follow me on Twitter at SonOfATech, and of course, I will let you guys know when I see more changes coming through. Let me know what you guys think about the swap to GPUs. I think here's what I've noticed. This is actually kind of interesting. We've had the trend here recently where you have, let's just say the latest three. Let's say the latest three new proof of work layer 1 blockchains in Kaspa, Alephium, and then Radiant. And of course, there's Nexa, but there's no hint of ASICs yet for Nexa, even though their plan is. All three launched with intention of going to ASICs. Now, we have fundamentally different strategies, I think, from an emission standpoint on all three, where Kaspa, fast emissions, you got, I believe, Radiant planning for longer emissions to have basically more guaranteed security for a longer amount of time. You have different strategies that are going in there, but the trend has been basically build a layer 1 blockchain with some unique features, onboard some sort of ASIC manufacturer to back that project, and then basically work with that ASIC manufacturer to build the units, get the supply out, drive the hype up, and invest into the project to drive the price in fiat up on those projects. Now, on the flip side, what we've seen is now we've started to see a lot of projects move away from ASICs, right? So we saw Meowcoin, well, moving off of Kapow, but that was a little bit different. And then Ironfish kind of pushing back against, preparing for that with their GPU launch. But now we're seeing, this swap from X11 to essentially a GPU mineable coin. And we're starting to see more and more forks of Kaspa and Carlson hash and all of that to get a Kaspa variant of a GPU resistant or a GPU mineable coin. The projects that appear to be essentially courting the GPU miners, for lack of a better term, seem to be the projects that did not have quite the hype surrounding them. At least that's what I'm noticing. So if you look at like the courting of the GPU miners, it's coming from projects that don't have as many participants. And frankly, I think that's a good strategy for the aforementioned reasons of basically there's more people that own GPUs. So if you want more people to be aware of your project, allow it to be GPU mineable and more people will participate. And I think we'll see that more and more depending on, what the outcry from the general public surrounding cryptocurrency is and how successful some of these projects are with their move, right? So pay attention. I'm really interested to see where it goes. At the end of the day, I think you probably, your biggest risk on any project, whether it's ASIC or GPU mineable, is whether or not the algorithm is available on NiceHash and whether or not there are other projects that have access to that algorithm, right? So from a 51% attack, that's probably the biggest threat, other than, of course, second biggest threat is you have an entity that's unknown that controls all the hash power and puts 50% of its hash power on a single pool. Well, then you're also having to worry about bad actors hacking that pool. So there's that too, but that's more on the only an ASIC risk, I suppose, probably also an FPGA risk as well, or just a pool risk, right? Obviously, you need multiple pools to keep all of this thing afloat, and that's a big problem there.
Now, you guys mined during the bear market. You made it through. Well, at least maybe a half of you. I know a lot of you motherfuckers over here didn't actually do it, but the ones that did, I have a new shirt for you guys, and it says, I mined with the bears for the bear market, okay? So if you mined with the bears and you want to rep that you did mine during the bear market, go ahead and head on over to shop.sonofatech.com. And the listing will be down below. I'll put it in live chat right now. I have a sweatshirt. There's a sticker if you'd rather have a sticker, t-shirt, premium shirt, all that cool stuff. Really like the new shirt. I ordered a few for myself, and I just had that design finished this week. Eventually it'll be on the YouTube channel, but that takes a little bit of time, so just give it some time. Proceeds, of course, go to supporting me in the channel, so there you go. And I thought we put some work into it, and I thought you guys might enjoy it.